Yes, that is right. Here we go. Monday night, 7 o'clock Central. It can only mean one thing: help a teacher. Facebook Live. All right, so I'm going to tell you a quick story, just a part of a story, and I'm not sure how many details I'm going to get correct on this story, but here's what I do know. I do know that some of these details are accurate. I'm going to do my best not to make anything up. And then whatever I don't get right, our guest is going to fill in the gaps. All right. So here's what went down. Is we got a call from Kansas to go do a couple of teaching a rock star gigs through this amazing organization called Greenbush Educational Service Center. And we had a couple of dates booked, and I flew up there and was so excited to do this thing. And then they have this weird, bizarre meteorological thing that happens in Kansas called cold. And so I got to Kansas, and it is crazy cold. And then their ice falls from the sky. I'm in Houston, Texas. We don't have ice that falls from the sky. We have other things like hurricanes and mosquitoes. So I get to Kansas, and it is crazy cold, and there's ice falling from the sky. And things get pretty weird about like whether we're going to have these events or not, because teachers are, there's closing down schools and it's hard to travel. And so I am there with a wonderful a lady, a wonderful human being named Nikki Heiman, and she was the one that kind of helped organize all these events with the whole team there, and I guess was tasked with babysitting me basically, and making sure I show up at these events. And if I'm going to try to remember right, I can't remember if it was the first one or the second. One we showed up. I think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to get her on here because I can't remember which, because they go together. Like when you do these things, like I can't remember which one was first, but here's what I do know is that we were in the car together for a very long time, and we got to know each other and became just awesome friends. And I'm so glad that she's a part of my life because she's awesome and funny and crazy smart and knows a ton of stuff about our kids, man, like kids with disabilities, and supporting teachers who support kids with different learning styles. And I can't wait for you guys to meet her. She's amazing. Nikki Heiman, all the way from being quarantined, like real serious quarantined in Kansas. Nikki, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm great. All right, now help me get straight on this. When we were together in Kansas, the first one at the Greenbush, there's one that was kind of like in a gym, and the one that was like more in like a conference style thing that had carpeting.
Yeah, yeah. So you started
Which one happened first?
Lawrence happened first. And that was when
All right.
schools were shutting down and it was crazy. You accused me of not listening to you, but that's not true. I was checking the weather and the roads. Um,
That's right. You were the worst audience member. You were the one that constantly on the phone.
yeah. And you did leave out a couple of details. Just a couple.
Imagine that. Like which ones?
Well, you left out how you complained a couple times about the cold.
2 times. No, that's right. 2 times. I complained twice. Once I said, "Wow, it's a bit chilly outside." I remember that one time, and then the second time I went, "Man, it's pretty brisk." And I think those are the 2 times I said anything. No, that's accurate, right?
Yeah, sure. So um, we we were supposed to have back-to-back days. I think one was supposed to be Wednesday, and then the next day was supposed to be down south, and our main campus in Girard was supposed to be Thursday. But because all the schools shut down and everything was terrible, we moved the Thursday one to Friday. And so it wasn't even safe for me to go back home that night. So we were trying to figure out what all we were going to do. And I will never forget, we're not supposed to, in our company vehicles, there's something, it's our policy that we're not supposed to have people who aren't our employees in our vehicles. And you and I were talking about driving down there, and you said, so what do we do? Do we just wait for the stuff to melt? And I was like, no. And I'm texting my boss immediately. I'm like, this guy is not driving on ice. Please make an exception to this rule. So
All right, so there's one other thing I was going to bring up, and this was such an immediate and painful blow to my manhood, and that is, isn't it true? At some point, you actually went outside with a scraper and got the snow and ice off my car while I shivered inside in the heat.
So I was going to take your keys and I was going to scrape your windshield because I assumed your rental car did not have an ice scraper in it. Did it have an ice scraper in it? Was I right about that?
I don't even know what that is. First of all, you mean the spatula?
Yeah, you were like, "No, it's fine. I don't need you to scrape my windows." I was like, "Yeah, you do." Yeah, you do.
I thought it would just fly off when I was driving.
No.
All right, let's get into this, man. Let's have some conversation. First of all, let's talk about quarantining in Kansas, because you have a unique situation there, because you have a kid that actually tested positive.
Yeah.
And so kind of bring us up to date on that. How did this go down, and what were the guidelines as far as quarantining, and how did you guys handle it?
So I have three kids. My oldest is 17 and he has Down syndrome and he was considered higher risk for some things. And then I have a 14-year-old and also a 10-year-old. It was the 10-year-old that was a confirmed close contact. And then she tested, she spiked a fever for just a couple of hours, but then we went ahead and had her tested and she tested positive. And so she was quarantined for 10 days. But apparently then the rule is she's contagious up to the 10th day. And then, so that means that all of us were potentially exposed for an additional up to that 10th day. And then we had another 14 days of quarantine for us. She went back to school. So the rest of us had 24 days of quarantine, which is a long time. I mean, it wouldn't be a long time if you were on vacation, but it's a long time when you don't leave your house.
And talk to me real quick about, for sure, it is a long time. It's a long time for me in my 50s. It's a long time for you in your 20s. And then, but here it is. Here's what I know. I have teenagers, and it's a long time for them. But can you kind of expound a little bit on what is it like for Trenton, who's 17? He has Down syndrome, and being alone in a home without friends. What is it like for him?
Well, school is his outlet. That is where he sees people. That's where he interacts with his friends. And so you take that away, and that's everything. And also, no extracurriculars, nothing. I mean, in the summer when he doesn't go to school, we're out and about in the community and he sees people. But when you're isolated, that's it. He tries texting, but his reading and writing skills are he's still working on a lot of things. And so it's hard for him to really have a conversation over text. And if all his friends are at school, they don't even have an opportunity to text back. So it was very, very isolating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a big deal
I'm
back today.
Yeah. Some days I'm sure
Freedom.
easier and harder. And like, you work full time, obviously. So, and here's what I want. I know it's challenging for sometimes for teachers who are back at school, and maybe not all of them have experience working from home. I know my kid, his school has no one's gone back yet in Houston ISD, so most of his teachers are working from home, and they have children. But for those teachers have never tried to work from home and tried to teach from home online while they have their own kids in the house. Kind of talk to us a little bit about that. What has been your experience?
Oh, it's rough.
I bet.
I don't ever want to do this again. So I have Zooms a lot, not uncommon for me to be on Zoom all day and then to be managing 3 kids' Zooms as well, making sure that everybody is showing up when they need to be and everybody's on their schedule. My daughters can kind of take care of themselves for the most part, as long as they're telling me the truth about their work. Not that they ever wouldn't.
Of course. Come on.
Right. Just in case they can hear me. But Trenton really needs a lot of support for that. And so helping him, and then any homework, and that's it's a lot. And so teachers that have kids at home and they're also teaching from home, my heart goes out to them because luckily we had 24 days and I got to send them back.
Yeah. Yeah, and so going back now, when your kids there in Kansas, and I know it's small, it's a smaller, more of a rural district compared to what's happening in the inner city and suburbs. But are they masks, social distancing, all that is happening over there?
Yeah, so it's different depending on the school. We're in school full time unless there's a case and they need to be quarantined and wearing masks and social distancing. Um, but in Kansas, there's a lot of different things. There's a hybrid model. And from what I understand, that's the one that is the most difficult for teachers to have when they are teaching a classroom and they also are Zooming in students. I
Yeah.
think that looks different depending on what the school has adopted. But I've heard a lot of teachers say the hybrid is really, really hard. And then there's the full remote, um, which also really, really hard when you're trying to teach and you have your own family needs that you need to take care of, and honestly the social emotional needs of your own kids when you're isolated. um, it's significant. It's very different. It's very different. I could tell my kids regressed a lot. Like before COVID, it was not unusual for me to be gone 3 or 4 nights out of the month. And now my kids struggle when I'm like on the other side of the door.
Right. I'm in the bathroom, leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, in your role as a special education support provider, um kind of what has been the conversation, what has been conversations like with educators who have kids at home, have other kids with Down syndrome and kids with autism that are quarantined at home and coming back? What has been some of the struggles and challenges that you've seen?
Well, here in Kansas, especially, we have a hard time with internet access. There's a lot of places that don't have and that's not necessarily even. I mean, it's just not available, especially in the rural areas. We're lucky we got an upgrade just a couple months before COVID happened, or we would have been one of those families. Um, so that's a huge problem. And a lot of times, if there's a kiddo that has significant behavioral needs and parents who are trying to work from home, that's an impossible situation. And so there's been a lot of conversation around changing that model from direct instruction for the kid to coaching the parents and
Yeah.
supporting them, which is a mindset shift.
Just even with my kid who is kind of in just kind of general ed classes at it's not a typical high school, it's a performing arts high school, but it's really rigorous academically. And I got to tell you, like, if it wasn't all hands on deck between my wife, myself, and his sister who's in college, who we call in, like, it's kind of like, that's like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, like that's his lifeline. We can't figure things out on the algebra or geometry or whatever it is. And I mean, I can't even imagine what it'd be like for a kid who doesn't have parents actually like participating, not even just a little, like, full time to get this work done. I mean, the amount of work that has been happening in this house over the last 4 or 5 weeks has been incredible. I cannot imagine what it would be like with internet struggles, technology struggles, non-participatory parents, special ed requirements, modifications. It's incredible.
It is incredible, and it shows you the value of school and all the work that teachers do when they're at school when we don't have access to that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got to tell you, what really concerns me is, and maybe you've seen some of this in your work, is I the level of stress prior to COVID, all the way up until the middle of March 2020 for teachers. It was a lot. It's a lot to handle.
Mhm.
And not everybody on the planet can handle that. That's why we lose 50% of educators every 5 years. 50%. There's 50% turnover because it's so hard. Now, when you throw this wrench into it, the level of anxiety and stress and frustration and exhaustion is just it's intolerable. And I'm not sure the normal person is built to handle it for for this length of time. And have you seen that same kind of exhaustion and frustration in your work?
Yeah, I think as leaders, we need to be reflecting a lot more on how we're taking care of teachers, and really being intentional about understanding the level of stress that they're on under, and what we can do to support them. What can we take off your plate? What is meaningful work versus what is something that can wait? Kind of quadrant sort, urgent versus important. Um, and how can we figure that out to make this a little bit more manageable? But also leaders need the same kind of support um, and grace, because this is tough for everybody. I am so glad I'm not a superintendent right now making some of the decisions that they have to make, because people are going to be upset either way. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you do. It's tough. It's tough.
It is, especially that leadership and it's not really, it's almost not the decision making part that's hard. They do that all the time. It seems what my conversations with superintendents, what's challenging for them is they do make a tough, critical decision. Lots of people are angry about it, but then a week later, word comes down, we have to change all that. So now the other half that weren't mad, now they're mad. And then in addition to that, all the work that we're doing as educators, that shifts entirely, and then teachers are spending another weekend of working 20 hours to get set up for the new mandate that just came down.
Oh, for
And
sure. Teachers are. I just interrupted.
right, man, it really is what is critically important and urgent simultaneously. Let's look at that only. And that's what I hope we can take a look at, talking about my kid's school again, is like with homework. Is it really critical? I mean, the kid's online 8 hours anyway. Do we have to do another 4 hours online with homework? Is it really urgent? Is it really important? And what's critically that we have to handle right now? Let's look at those few things. And I think that applies in leadership, instruction, and everywhere.
Yeah. So I teachers are chronic overachievers. And so, like you were talking about earlier, new mandates changing all the time. Teachers are going to get, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. They're going to dive into it, and they're going to get really, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to do the best I can for my kids. And you put your heart and soul into it. And then a week later, never mind, throw it out. We're starting over. Start the whole cycle again. And it's, you know, rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And that is really taxing. I mean, added to a stressful situation anyway. So I do think it's, yeah, that urgent and important, and figuring out what's on your plate versus what can you take off your plate, and being okay with taking stuff off your plate, right? It's hard to say no when you're a chronic overachiever.
I think the other personality trait of a typical teacher is they want to feel like they're really good at something. They want to feel great at it. And in this situation, it's set up where, it's so early in the game, it's hard to feel great at it because it's so new. But then if you really take a good look at it, I'm not sure it's even possible to get great, especially like at a hybrid instructional model. And so they're just eternally frustrated. And then the next level of frustration psychologically and emotionally happens for teachers is like the best teachers that we have. They're in this game for one reason, and that is to make a difference in the lives of kids. And the way we have things set up and the distancing, the masks, the hybrid, all that happening simultaneously, many of our educators feel like they're just not, they don't feel the effects. They don't feel like they're doing what they've set out to do, what they really want to do in their hearts, which is to change a kid's life. And that's the fuel for them. And it terrifies me to think that it's possible we're going to lose some of our best teachers because they're just not feeling that emotional, that emotion that's so critical to them.
Yeah, we're thankful for Zoom because we can still connect that way, but there's something so powerful about just sharing space with other people. I am one that would say I'm an introvert and I'm fine at home. I don't need to be around people, but after 24 days of quarantine, I'm wrong. I need to rethink that.
Right.
um, but teachers get energy from the kids and from being around them, and it's so hard to know for sure that you can make a difference in their life when it's over Zoom. Maybe their camera's not working, or um, maybe you have a hard connection. Like, it's really hard to reach out and really feel good about it. And
Yeah.
that can help, or that can definitely hinder a teacher who is passionate about their job.
I just heard the other day, listening to my kid online, and I heard his teacher was begging, like she was in tears almost. I could hear it in her voice. Y'all, this is so lonely. You don't have to turn on your cameras. I'm not telling you have to, but please, if anybody, just for a moment, because I looked at a screen, it just all has her initials all across. And I was like, dude, turn your cameras fine. And she's like, oh, thank God. Thank you, Jones. Just so happy, and some of them feel isolated out there. Well, I mean, I'm sure all of them do. Just talking at that little black dot on the frame of the laptop all day. And but even the ones in our classrooms, those back in the trenches, there's something. You're right. When the mask is on and we can't see the expression of the kid, and there's not the handshake at the front door, of the classroom, not the high five, not the hug. It's just a whole different dynamic.
Yeah. I was gonna say something, and now my son knocked on the door. He does. He watch Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
He does the thing Sheldon does. He knocks 3 times. Mom, mom, mom.
Right.
So,
He's got a system.
he does. He does. But, I think that it's important to remember that this is temporary. I mean, we don't know how long it's going to last, but we will get through it. I think we have to just really be conscientious about supporting people and knowing that when people are going through really tough stuff, they say things that they wouldn't normally say, and they do things that they wouldn't normally do because they're just not themselves. And so, if you're on the receiving end of somebody who's extra grumpy because they haven't seen a human in 24 days, not saying that I've been grumpy. You got me on my first day of freedom, so I'm super happy today. But that can be hard. But I think we all have to remember that we all process things different, and this is tough for everybody. But it's temporary, and we will get through it, and we'll get to go back to the classroom, and we'll get to go back to making a difference in the lives of those kiddos every day.
Yeah, man, I love for me, that has been the word for back to school is just grace, for everyone, superintendent, through principals, teachers, custodians, I mean, school nurses, secretaries, parents, kids, is just extending as much understanding and grace and compassion, and just giving everybody in every situation constantly, in my mind, just giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Because you're right, man. This is like really, really hard emotionally, and not just for. And I think sometimes we forget. Yes, for teachers for sure, but also for kids and what they're going through with their parents at home.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really tough for the parents too. And it's not I think we have to remember that everybody's doing the best they can with what they have, and everybody's situation is different. Even if it looks perfect on the outside, they might be struggling at home. So,
Yeah, Amanda says that for her, COVID teaching is harder than first year teaching. And I recently did a video for a group of teachers I sent in for their students, and we were texting back and forth. And he's like, brother, I think he's in his 25th year, maybe. He's like, this is by far the hardest year of my career. And I texted back, I said, don't forget your first year. And he goes, oh, I'm not. It's hard in my first year for sure. And this
yeah,
is an amazing educator, 25 years experience. He said, I've never worked so many hours, so hard, so long in my life.
I can't imagine. Um, I'm not in the classroom anymore, so we're doing professional development. We're doing a lot of webinars and coaching, kind of back and forth, all over Zoom. And I can't imagine teaching kids. I've made lame comments on Zoom, like I've said, "Okay, guys, I'm really sad and lonely. Can you please turn your cameras on so I can see your faces?"
Yeah.
I can't imagine the struggle of working with kiddos who don't understand things like that. And
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for you. And hey, Laura, how are you? Good to see you. For you, Nikki, when you're working with teachers on how to best support their parents of their kids, what has been some of the struggles you heard and some of the feedback that you've been able to give them?
Well, definitely if a parent is an essential worker and they still have to go to work, how does that even happen? But if that's not the issue, I mean, I think that if we can talk to parents about how to embed some of this instruction into their regular day, really think about what the goal is for the kiddo and how can we do that naturally. For example, Trenton is working on some life skills and measurement and things like that for math. So we're in the kitchen and he's cooking and doing regular real world stuff, which is great for him. And you know what? That's homework that's relevant.
Yeah.
I would much rather have him making me a pizza than doing a worksheet. It means more to him, and also we get supper out of it. So
Yeah.
this
I
is
love it.
real
You know,
world
we
stuff.
on here we've had Rhonda Turner, superintendent at Equipment Independent School District, and she was the one who got kind of national fame because they district. This is back in March or April when this first the quarantine happened. They decided to shut everything down, and they created a life lessons curriculum for the entire school. It's a smaller district. And you can do a lot of creative things in a smaller district for sure. But that's what it looked like. So it was first, second, and third grade had their own curriculum. Fourth and fifth had a curriculum, sixth, seventh, and then high school. And it was everything from how to vacuuming all the way to how to change a tire, checkbook.
Wow.
It was really cool that
Ooh,
everybody collaborated on this. And I thought, man, I love that. And of course, the New York Times wanted to interview her, Good Morning America. And I thought, how interesting you get famous by doing what's right, what's meaningful rather than just what everybody else is doing.
yeah. What's really important? Really digging
Yeah.
into.
Like we're at the point in this house, I'm checking with my kid. Hey man, what did we get on that chemistry quiz? Like, because I'm working hard in that class, man. What did we get on that thing? 74. God, thought for sure we get an 80, somewhere in the 80s. And as you're going back, as life is, it's not even close to normal, but there's kind of, I mean, you're starting to see glimpses of something different in your work. What does that look like now as you start? Are you guys going to get back into schools and start having conferences out at Greenbush? What's on the horizon for you guys?
Well, I am begging to go back out into schools, and so some of them can. It depends on the case rates in each county, what that looks like. But I think that we're going to be able to be more creative with how to reach more people through this. It's kind of forced us for creative thinking, and I think there have been some um, COVID blessings. If you look real closely, there, we've been forced to rethink a lot of the things that we've done. So hopefully we will be having conferences soon, but it's hard to do that, social distancing. So small groups, we're talking about transitioning to do those in person, but we have been pretty much over Zoom since March.
Yeah.
But I talking about transitioning back.
I got to admit, man, I was pleasantly surprised at some of the things that I've been able to do online in terms of conferences and getting just creating emotion over online. Kind of what I do. The whole What's beautiful about the in-person event is that synergistic effect of emotion, and that is when you get everybody in one room feeling the same emotion at the same time, it produces something greater than its individual parts. And when in that way, when there's 75 people in a room and something's funny, it's even funnier because 75 people all feel that same emotion. And when it's moving and touching, and it's the same thing in a classroom, in that moment of learning and in a moment of inspiration and motivation and contemplation, when the kid can reflect on learning, when everybody feels that happening together, all those kids at the same room, same time, not only does it make the learning deeper, but it also creates deeper sense of relationships within that classroom family. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed some of the stuff I've done online, but man, I can't wait to get back in person.
Me too. I miss it. I miss people.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
The introvert finally is come. She's telling us now. She's making an extrovert conversion. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna be that out of control person that's like, please help me.
The over talker. And then what happened? Right. Gonna start with March 15th and start coming all the way through your timeline until right today.
Yes, that would not take long.
Right. Hey, tell us what you got going on. So what people don't know, and I know just because we're homies, is that you are you're deep, you're knee deep into your next degree. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I thought chances are pretty good that we may have fewer. Do you hear that? Do you hear my?
That's number 2. Here comes number 3.
Getting after it.
There it is.
We may not have as many sporting events that we're going to, and so our evenings might be a little calmer. So I decided to go back and work on a doctorate through Kansas State University. So excited about that.
And is it true that it's in podiatry? Is that right?
Sure. No. It'll be in education administration. I have my kids practice calling me Dr. Mom.
Start right now. Get used to it, kids.
So one of the things that I'm really studying is post-secondary transition for students with disabilities, and what does that look like? And it's really interesting because we're at that phase as a family that we're talking about, what is Trenton going to do when he's finished with high school, when he graduates? What are his plans? And we've talked about that forever, but as a parent, it's really easy to just put your head in the sand and pretend like it's not going to happen. But then you blink and it happens and you're there. So we're there and we don't really have a solid plan. And it's a very, very complex process to look at different state programs, to look at different supports and case management systems and finances and independent living. What's he going to do? And so the more I start digging into it, and our state has really, really decided that they're going to focus on, we're going to have a talk when we're done with this guy.
Listen, I think it's decided that guy, he needs to get into door-to-door sales. I think that is his passion. That's what he's meant to do.
Career calling. Anyway, our state has really made the decision to improve that process for all kids with disabilities. So I'm going to start going around to different schools, different 18 to 21 programs, and really looking at what does this look like across the state? What questions do people have? Because every time I learn something, I learned that there's more stuff that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I've been in this field my whole career. So by this field, I mean special education.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, listen, man, I can't thank you enough. I know I don't want your door to get broken down, so I think it's a good time. Or maybe you need to install a doorbell that doesn't ring. I think you just let them think it rings.
That's me.
All right, you guys have an amazing night. Tell Trenton I said hi, and the rest of your clan over there. Cool.
Thank you so much for having me, Hal.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Wow.